shall we restart from the beginning? So welcome back to the Checkmk channel. Today I have a special guest with me. It's Christian Michaelski from our partner CONET. And he uses Checkmk for many years now. We know each other from lots of conferences. And so today we want to talk about Checkmk in general and in special about how Checkmk or how monitoring in general is important for establishing a good IT security.
Yeah.
So welcome here in Munich. How are you?
Yeah, fine. Thank you, Matthias, to being here. And I hope we have a good discussion and a good interview about these security things.
So you have done lots of Checkmk projects. What's the typical situation when you come to a new customer? What are you doing there? How's your experience?
So when we go to a new customer, we find everything about security issues, and also if we found a lot of tools using to do monitoring, or we found also no tools. And our goal is to get an overview about the organization, the processes, and the tools the customer used in a security perspective, to fit them together, to help them, to consult them, to get a better security.
And is monitoring one of the first steps you do there?
From my point of view, is always the first step. So this is the most information based on problems with your IT systems, and also you can figure out problems by offenses when resources run out of time or something else. So
isn't monitoring also a good way to structure the IT system of your customer before you mind, so that you get an overview of what's going on by simply putting that into the monitoring?
Yeah, so it's a good way to structure it. So you need to fit the organization into the monitoring tool to have a better place to administer this tool, and you find also on the right point the problems. So if you have a good structure, you have a good feeling how effective you place rules in this structure, then you have an effective monitoring, and you find also the problems on the systems, they have the problems.
And do you start with quality or with quantity? So if you set up your monitoring, do you start with a small number of systems that you monitor in a very detailed way? Or do you want to get a broad overview and then improve it later on?
It depends on. So a new customer, we start with quality. So we try to test on the special systems like a server, network devices, on a handful, to bring that to a good base before we alarming. If we come to customer, they have Checkmk or other monitoring tools, we need to improve that. So most of the cases in this operational, the structure is not so good set. So this is the way, our goal is to help the customer to organize the monitoring based on their organization.
And what's a typically bad what's a typical situation where monitoring is badly implemented?
It's
what's the typical errors or mistakes that people make when implementing monitoring?
The most problem or errors they make is to go too fast forward and to look not. You have to not figure out what they need. So we help also our customers to get the requirements or set the requirements. We ask for their requirements. If the requirements not fit in your monitoring, then you need no monitoring. So a good requirement management will help to get good monitoring at this point.
What does it mean in detail? What kind of requirements? Can you give an example?
Yeah, so most of the systems need a specification. So as a requirement, this server has this database, has an application server, has something else. You need to specify what do you want to monitor and with which thresholds, which application and which measurement points. And if you have this requirement, you can set up the monitoring. So basic monitoring like memory, CPU, and so on, and also the application monitoring, processes, log files, and something else. And if you have this view, you can provide the customer a solution how you set up this in this organizational structure and in the logical structure of monitoring.
So you mean how to set up Checkmk with folders and labels and tags and so on, so that it perfectly matches the organization of the
So you will do this also effectively. So you will place a rule which has a content or context to a label. So if you have a application, you label it with my application, for example, then you have one rule for the whole stuff. If you have one system or 1,000 systems, it's very effectively to change one rule. And this is what we provide the customer to say here, do it at this way, and you have a secure monitoring at this point and a good operational monitoring.
And if you find customers with an existing Checkmk, do you rebuild that from scratch, or do you improve it?
We improve it.
Okay.
The advantage of Checkmk is that you can do a copy of your logical structure in other ways. So you build up a new logical structure and move the systems to the new folders or something else.
Okay, so you create a new Checkmk site, for example?
Yeah, so we do a workshop with the customer and say, that is not very good and this is not very good. And then we decide to do a new structure.
The structure means a folder structure plus tags and labels maybe?
Yeah.
So you set it up empty, and that's a new tree and everything. Yeah. Then you can move host by host into the new.
Yeah. For example, we have one customer, he has 4 sites, for example, remote sites, and they have a structure based on main directory and then the folder sites as entry points. And above these site structure,
the first level in the tree is the site at that customer, yeah.
And the next tree is Linux, Windows, and something else.
Yeah, okay.
So they complained that you need to build 4 rules for the same work.
Everything, so because the first tree level is not very useful here.
Yet. And this is the reason why we rework the logical structure to an effective way. And
so you get simpler rules and
you reduce also the amount of rules at this point. Will also helpful.
And that makes it easier to add new hosts later on because you just drop it at the right place.
But you need to know how you should label or do host tags on the host. That is then a little bit more work, but it's helpful to automate with the REST API or something else.
And how different? I mean, you make a workshop for setting up the Checkmk structure. Okay, how different are these structures from customer to customer? So, or otherwise, is there some ideal structure that fits everyone needs, or is it very diverse how you set it up each time?
Yeah, we have a look on a lot of customers. At customer side is very different, but we have a structure we provide new customers, for example. It's based on some key points like infrastructure, server, network, backup, storage, and so on. And over these structure, you have on server, Linux, and the operation system also on.
So first you divide between these application types. Does it also match the organizational structure? So you say backup is not only a technical term, but also people that deal with backup?
Yeah, this is also a workshop who will deal with the structure, but most of the time we want to have the structure flat.
Okay. Yeah.
So we can do a lot of with label and host tags at this point to.
So you use rather a flat folder hierarchy and work more with tags and labels.
Yeah. So it's for us is important to have good base monitoring. So a base monitoring for Linux can you place on the folder Linux.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
all folders over Linux will have this base monitoring, and then you can decide in the next folder application that you have different thresholds, but you have always a base stuff,
Yes,
and
okay.
that's the advantage of this flat folder structure at this point.
And okay, so let's come a bit back to the security issue. How to the topic security? How does the monitoring interact or affect the IT security?
Yeah, so from my perspective, the classical monitoring is a basic for all security itself. So you can detect if your system are running and are and stable. So a security need a stable infrastructure to hold the data. So if the data not available, the data is not secure. Is secure but not available. So you need a good view if all your stuff you need in your cybersecurity are handled by your IT operational.
So you mean monitoring for operating the security tools? Is
Also
that what you want to say? That the monitoring is important to make sure that your security tool chain does its job?
Yeah. So it's one point to deliver data into your interfaced security products. So if you want to find out, for example, a vulnerability of OpenSSL, so you can go to Checkmk and say, give me your inventory data about OpenSSL, and you look at the
so check the version numbers,
and check out if we have a problem on this system or another system. So this will be in a good interfacing at this point.
So Checkmk provides data that gives information about how secure you are and where are possible breaches and so on.
When you use this feature, hardware-software inventory at this point. Yeah, and you can also find offenses on your web server. For example, if you have more threads or more users on a web server, it could be an offense. It could also be a problem with the interfacing of an application. But if you have much more load, it can be a reason that you have an offense on your system.
So Checkmk helps to find it as fast as possible in that situation.
Yep.
And how can monitoring help to keep the impact of a security issue as low as possible?
The impact you can, if you reduce the impact, you can only see that you have a problem on your system, but the impact will reduce when you know who is the owner of the system, you have the information who is responsible for the system, where is the system, what interfacing I have, which dependency I have. So this is more over the monitoring. You need other tools like a CMDB or an information base to get this information about the problem or security problem which you detect by your monitoring system.
Yeah, but as fast as you can see which systems are impacted, the lower the cost, the total cost of these things.
Yeah. So this is important that you have the correct measure points to find these security issues, like application server or web server or interfacing at this point. Yeah. Or you have an impact about your performance, or you see an impact which is not normal in normal operation.
Okay, so you use the measurements of performances like CPU usage or number of sessions concurrent, and how do you set up the correct thresholds for that? Basically, how do you?
Yeah, this is you need to measure over time how is your normal work on your server. And if you have an overview over the normal operation of your application or your server, then you can set a threshold like 5–10% over the maximum value. And with this threshold, you can go in productive. And then if you have more threats or something else over the threshold, you can detect everything. So you will have a problem with your system, or you have an offense or something else.
But I think still you need trained persons in order to interpret these findings. So if you go above the threshold, somebody needs to check what's going on there. How can support monitoring you in that situation? So you have set up a threshold, and you get an alarm. I'm 10% over the usual CPU usage or the usual maximum usage. What would be the next step? So how can monitoring help here?
At this point, it can help. Monitoring can help to find out the historical things. Over your metric data, you can analyze what happens in the past, what happens during the offense, and you need people that analyze it on the right way. So you must involve also your security people in the monitoring to look at the system, what happens there, and what differences to the normal operation in a security case. And with these lessons you learned, you can increase your security at this point.
Okay, so then the monitoring is a tool for analyzing the situation later.
Yeah.
And try how to improve your infrastructure so that it doesn't happen next time.
Yeah. Or you find out which interface is involved. Do I need to improve something in my application? And so this can be a result of this analysis from the security people.
Can monitoring also help right in that situation where the attack is going on, to see where it's coming from, or in order to shut down something?
Yeah,
or
but
take immediate action.
It depends on. So if you need your offense, or if you know your offense, you can do action against the system to say shut down the application server. So this will be an automatic way, or you will inform the correct people that do that in this way. Yeah. So you need to have a reflex action or something else which will handle this.
What other things do you typically improve when you come to a customer?
A lot of things we improve is first the right tools, and second the processes and the organization. So if you do monitoring or security, you need processes. So if you have an offense, you need to describe what is the offense, who is manager on duty, who will solve this, who will find anything at this point, who will look at different systems. And this is important. Also by using normal monitoring. If you have an alarm, who is responsible for this? Who will handle this? Is this a critical alarm? You need to inform security offices like BSE and something else.
So as a part of your consulting, you create these procedures together with the customer?
Yeah, also. But the first view for us is to look at the IT operation, and over the IT operations you need the processes to handle it. And this is also part from us to consult the customer in this way. So if you have no processes, he will handle problems. So so you can get an email that your memory runs out of, and the admin changed it, but it's not documented. So you need also a system which documented this problem to learn from these problems. And
Okay.
this is also an important thing, that you have processes to do that to get better at this point.
And what's the hardest thing to explain to the customer? Where do you have the most problems? So that the customer usually nobody wants to change something how he's working. What's the hardest thing here?
The hardest thing is to get accepted for the different working. So you need to tell the customer that they need a good processing of problems. He needs to inform a lot of people, and this is not easy to implement this in their heads at this point. But most of the time it works. If you have a big problem, then they have another intent to do that. Yeah.
So I think they learn first something serious must happen, and then they learn.
Learning by pain.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is helpful. We have one customer, he had a web server farm, and we looked at it. Yeah, so if it costs thousands of euros, so then you need a monitoring when your services are not working. So this is the pain you must pay for.
And what else do you think is important when you set up a monitoring? So what's your learning from years of Checkmk?
Learning from years,
what are you doing better now, and what are you doing differently than at the beginning, and why?
Yeah, so it's the learning from the customer, how they work with monitoring. So, and over the years, we find out that important is that the things around the monitoring is important, so processes, organization, and also that the staff who makes processes also talk with the admin. So we find out there is a lot of gap between the admin staff and the planner staff. And it's important to involve both in the process of monitoring. So the one who design should know how the others work. And over the time, we find the right methods to help them to integrate the people with each other to use Checkmk as a good monitoring tool. And also, we told our customers, look at the interfacing. You have so many tools at the service management, like a ticket system, an event console. Integrate the monitoring also in these systems. Do a good stable alarms and force the acceptance also for monitoring for all people that involved in the IT operational process.
From your point of view, what's important to get acceptance for the monitoring? What are the key? Or do you have some learnings from the past? Some anecdotes?
Yeah. So the best way is do good things and talk about it. So when we do a monitoring, we told the customer, go to your colleagues, say, we have a monitoring, we found this problem, and bring it to all who want to know it. So this is one point. And the other point is the acceptance will also there, if you have no problems and your IT running very good, they will not ask if your monitoring is good, so the IT is good. And this is, I think, the best effort you can have for the acceptance.
And what do you need to do to have very bad acceptance? What's typically a showstopper for monitoring, for failed monitoring projects?
For failed, most of the time we have only good monitoring.
But maybe the previous consultant before you came failed.
Yeah,
with the monitoring. Yeah, you mean there are monitoring systems that are there and they are monitored, but they are not really used.
Yeah,
what's the main reason why an existing monitoring system is not being used?
So most of the case, choosing the wrong thresholds is one, or
you mean that the system creates too many false positives?
Yeah. So if you have a lot of false positive, you have no acceptance. If you have too many alarms, you have also the monitoring tool is not good. But the one who implemented and not do the right stuff at this point, or had no look on how run the systems, then you have a bad monitoring and you have no acceptance. So also bad acceptance are the IT management decide to buy any monitoring software, but it fits not with your IT operation. So the operational staff says, oh, nice monitoring tool, but we want to use this. We have Checkmk under the table or something else, and we work, or we like to work with another tool, but the IT management says, oh, it was very expensive, you need to use it.
Yeah,
and this really will not fit the requirements of the IT operation.
Does this happen often? Because from my experience, almost always the Checkmk was bought or purchased or started by the admins.
Yeah, so it is so. So we
even very large companies.
Yeah, so we have also companies, they used IBM monitoring, and you go to the departments and ask what tools they used, and then you find out, it's good, but we use Nagios. In other department, we use Checkmk. In other department, PRTG.
So the department has set up their own Checkmk in addition to the expensive.
Yeah. So, and the IT management say, you must use IBM, and the admin says, no. I have a better solution. I work with this solution, and it works for me, and everything is fine. And that is also the gap. So the IT management will not talk to the operational staff, what is the best tool for the operation. And I have different other customers where we have these problems in communication.
And from my experience, from my previous consulting times with Checkmk, I had often a different situation. Not the department against their CEOs or CTOs or something like that, but one department against the other one. So one had Checkmk because I was there, then the other one had something different. And at some point of time, the management decided we need a unified monitoring, and then the big question is, which one shall we use?
Yeah.
Do you know these situations?
Yeah, I know these situations, but if you have a large customer, then you need to consult him to use event manager over all the monitoring stuff, to integrate all monitoring events to one point.
Okay, so that's one, sometimes called umbrella monitoring.
Yes, it's umbrella monitoring.
So you have lots of different monitoring systems, and then in order to get a centralized overview, you put some event-based system on top, because event-based always works. Yeah. Because a state can be converted into event very simply, but not otherwise around.
Yeah, so
but then you don't have a central configuration of the monitoring, and but it's just very, very partly centralized. It's not really a central monitoring, it's just a central view.
It's a central view of the events, and you can do a lot of things with these events. So you can correlate it over different systems. So this is the effort of an event manager or umbrella system. But you are right, you have no central monitoring administration. Then you need an organization or a process who says, you do your PRTG configuration, but you need to be, you need to send only problems that are real problems. And this also for the other monitoring tools. So this is more.
Sometimes we were asked if Checkmk can be an umbrella monitoring system, my answer always was, or my thinking, that it's better to really replace the other monitoring systems and have one monitoring system, because when sending something to an umbrella monitoring, many information gets lost.
Yeah.
For example, you don't have immediate access to metrics or whatever. So it's looks like an easy solution, but all the details are very ugly, I think.
Yeah, so this can also part of our consulting. So we have also customer, they have a zoo of tools, and sometimes the admins don't know about Checkmk. So then you do an internal marketing at the customer and say, yo, let's have a look on this department. They use Checkmk.
That also was my finding, that it starts with one department.
Yeah.
And when you do a good job and the Checkmk is running well, then there are some departments that don't have a really good monitoring or don't have an opinion. Yeah. And they see, oh, you have this new monitoring, can we do the same?
We have one customer, yes, exactly this problem. No? They use PRTG in one place and Checkmk at the other. And then they find out, oh, PRTG is expensive. We cannot monitor all the stuff, but we have Checkmk. So set up a POC in a different environment, and we look if we can move from PRTG to Checkmk, and it works. It had worked. From this point, it's a good way to consolidate the monitoring tools, but it works not in every company.
And it takes a long time. I know it from the first big Checkmk customer. They started with, I think it was the SAP monitoring, and then the department for the databases joined in, and slowly a couple of other departments joined in, but then there were other sites in Germany that had completely different monitoring.
Yeah.
And it took a couple of years, and then there was a political decision, everything should be based on Checkmk, and the monitoring grew more and more important. And yeah, the funny thing was at a later point, the vendor of the other monitoring system that was very popular there at that time, they became Checkmk partner, dropped their own monitoring tool, and switched over to using Checkmk.
This could also a good point back to security. So if you have well educated staff with one tool, it's better if you have some of admins that not very good in their tools. So, and Checkmk at this point is very easy to administer. You can do a lot of things on an easy way, and this will also help in the security stuff. Yes.
Also, I think it's an advantage of Checkmk is that it has kind of best practices built in. So the check plugins most times have useful thresholds and then know what to monitor. Because there are other monitoring systems like Prometheus that gives you access to thousands of metrics, and there's no alerting. So there is an alerting, but you need to set thresholds, and you need to pick from these thousands of metrics from your application, the 20 that are interesting, and then you need to know the thresholds, and that's very difficult. And Checkmk makes the selection for you and knows what's crucial, and has built in many best practices, it's like an expert system in some case.
Yeah, what we also find out is the new techniques. So a lot of discussion we had is about application performance monitoring. So some customers say, oh, I don't need Checkmk, I do application performance monitoring. When I hear this, I say it's a good way, but you need a different thing. You need both. You need a resource monitoring, state-based, and you need an application performance monitoring to see how your work is. So now the problem with this robotic, you need to involve developers. And if you have no developers who will do the...
You mean for the APM system?
Yeah, so to set up the customer experience monitoring, then it will not work.
I mean, these tools can be very powerful. I know
Yes,
that
it's important to have
you look
this.
at the whole chain from the customer is clicking at the website, and it goes through several command calls within the application. Even you can see, okay, 70% of the time I use in the database and so on, and improve your application. But it's super specific.
Yeah, and you need the measure points.
It's super detailed. You need sometimes developer knowledge for that and so on. So it's a different tool.
Yeah, but it shows in only your service. But you don't need, if you have a problem with other resources, which depends on. Yeah, so
it answers a different question.
Yeah, so from my perspective, you need both the service monitoring about APM, or a good tool for this is the RobotMK framework to integrate this, but you need the people to do that.
The RobotMK again, and I would call it an end-to-end monitoring.
Yeah, APM is also end-to-end.
Yeah, so but there's one thing that I saw about APM, that you can instrument your code, your actual application.
Yeah.
Usually you have a call stack. You know, you for your web shop, for some procedure, the application is running and goes through several subroutines.
Yeah.
Within your C program, for example, can you see at this time, this call stack at that point,
little bit different.
It takes 1.5 milliseconds until the database answers and so on. So it's
a different view on end-to-end.
It's very. I think it's the complete opposite of end-to-end. End-to-end, I would say, I'm just interested from. If I'm in Singapore and click on this website, do I get an answer within 20 seconds?
Yeah.
As a user on a real browser, for example.
Yeah. So same can you do
with this instrumentation? I can have a look from the perspective of a developer. At which point of my call stack, I spend how much time in order to improve my software and so on.
Yeah, both tools are very good to enrich your IT operation and to give you a better view of your application and stuff. But you need as a base good monitoring at this point. So you have a lot of involved systems you will not get in your end-to-end or APM system. So you need a view on the system itself. And
because if the end-to-end monitoring says the process is broken, it's too late. You need a good infrastructure monitoring to see where redundancies are broken, for example.
Yes.
So your end-to-end monitoring doesn't show you if your process is redundant.
Yeah, we want to go proactive, not reactive.
But I think what's going on there with this RobotMK is super interesting, and I'm really looking forward to the new implementations of the integration of this end-to-end monitoring into Checkmk.
Yeah, some days before we had a presentation about RobotMK in one of our projects, and we have exactly these questions. Who will responsible for set up the end-to-end? Yeah, so there was no answer while the organization has no people to do that. So
the old problem,
yeah. So nice tool, but no one who use this tool correctly or fit this tool with the requirements you need. Sometimes
you need the end-to-end monitoring, for example, when it comes to SLAs.
Yeah.
When you need to really show it. For the SLA, it's completely irrelevant if the database is redundant or whatever. You just want to see, if I press this button on the browser, do I get a response?
But you need the one who do the things. So he press the button and something else, or they implements the Selenium or something else.
It's a whole
If you have no people for that, then you don't need to think about end-to-end monitoring.
But I guess in the end, the number of, for example, Checkmk services you get from the end-to-end monitoring is way less than the usual number of services.
Yeah.
So you have a very big application built of hundreds of components, and you just have one check from the end-to-end. So the number of checks is not so big at the end.
Yeah, and you have also another problem. If you have an application check or an end-to-end check around the world with different interfacing and bandwidths,
Yeah.
then what threshold you will need. No? If you have there 100 Mbits and you have there a gigabit, who will compare this times? So it's also a big problem at this side. But
It's not easy, but I think it's a very useful and important addition to the classical infrastructure monitoring.
exactly.
I think it's both is necessary. You need to see what's happening from the point of view of an end customer. Is he able to order in the web shop right now? And you need to have a view on the infrastructure in order to avoid problems, and to find redundancy, breaks, and so on.
Yeah. And how many costs if the service is down?
Yeah. I mean, if the end-to-end monitoring sees that something is down, it's too late. From that point of view.
Yeah, this is a service view on monitoring. So at the moment, or since sometimes the trend goes to service monitoring. It's okay, but you can fit the correct measurement points to a good service, then you have a good overview for that. But there is also the problem that you need to find someone who gives you the dependencies on a service. So that is not easy.
Yeah, that's very difficult. Yeah. I mean, some make application monitoring. They try to mimic the same as an end-to-end monitoring with Checkmk BI. So if you know all these dependencies, you can create a BI aggregate and put everything in and say if that's okay, then the application is okay.
But finding out the dependency is one of the most
it's very
complex way in different customer environments.
Yeah, it is.
So the architect don't know the application. That's
everyone just knows a small part of it, maybe, and things are changing in between.
And this is not easy to say, or you need also this information for good monitoring. So you say BI is a very good tool to see, to show these dependencies, but if you have no information, you cannot show it.
Yeah. But sometimes BI is the only way to do an application monitoring. We had one, I cannot use any names here, but it was a process where at some point you ask for an ID card, for example, and the whole process doesn't take 5 milliseconds, but maybe 2 weeks. So you cannot make a real end-to-end monitoring. That would mean that you order a new business card every minute, and after 2 weeks you get one every minute, and check if it's there. So the only chance is to monitor each of the single processes in between, and say if all of them are okay, then probably my whole process will be okay. And so for that, BI is, I think, a very good solution.
So this is also important to have good ideas to bring your monitoring also in the security stuff. So we have also the answer, the question: can Checkmk do SIEM? SIEM is Security Incident Event Management System, and it's very complex. So from my point of view, a good based monitoring is a source for a SIEM system, but the SIEM system need log files, flows, and so on. And Checkmk is a monitoring system and should be a monitoring system and not all of them.
Yeah, so I think for today we have answered many questions, had a nice talk, so thanks for your time.
Yeah.
We stay in touch. We see we meet again at the conference, I guess.
Yes.
So thanks for watching, and I hope many of you go to the Checkmk conference. And I see we have 2 questions. So Christian, let's talk about the 2 questions.
Yeah.
So the first question is from Joshua Smith. Oh, the second one also. So the first question is: how can I make it so nobody's able to access the Checkmk except physically on the host computer to avoid anyone from gaining access? How can I make it so nobody's able to access Checkmk except physically on the host computer? So he wants, I think he just wants to restrict the access to the Checkmk user interface to just the physical computer. Shouldn't be too difficult.
It's very difficult.
Can you just restrict your Checkmk server to responding to a local host or something?
I think, but I have no solution for this yet.
I mean, I think
normally it works on your works on the UI works on local host, but the web server goes outside. So
I think that, but that's basic web server technology. I think with a simple Apache rule.
Yeah.
On the global Apache web server that's running on the Checkmk system, you have a global one and you have one per site.
Yeah.
And on the global one, you can make rules so that just certain IP addresses.
Is the best way. Yeah. So, or you go from another web server which is
with some
hardening or
proxy
something. Yeah.
But simplest rule, if it's really a Linux box where I have a user interface running, then I think I can restrict it to localhost.
Yeah. Accessible, but the Checkmk agent, when you use the normal agent stuff, it can only give data back. You cannot do active.
Yeah, I've designed it that way myself. So,
so
the Checkmk server doesn't read. It's a very special service. It's the only service I know that does not read any data from the network.
Yeah. We have all the time the discussion, will I do the access to the agent with SSH or do the normal stuff? And I told the customer, use the normal stuff. It's better if someone hack your private key on SSH, you can do everything on the target system. So
I mean, you can restrict the key to just execute the Checkmk agent without any further commands.
Yeah,
that's documented somewhere.
Yeah, but
it doesn't make. I mean, the Checkmk agent itself in the base form, the only thing that can happen that the hacker gains information.
Yeah,
but he cannot execute any commands.
Yeah,
and if you introduce SSH, you might even open a security issue to enable him to execute commands if you are not careful, of course.
Yeah.
So that's from the architectural point of view, the Checkmk agent is super safe because it doesn't read anything. If it doesn't read commands, you cannot have any buffer overflow, no insertions or anything like that. So the agent is really, I think, the most secure monitoring agent that I know from any system.
And you have now in the 2.1 the TLS encryption, which makes also the data safe.
Yes.
And
as long as the TLS has no security bug itself, which happened, but then every IT system was affected. Yeah. It makes a very super secure tunnel around the actual data.
Yeah. So the right way to make Checkmk more safe.
It's now the best practice that's I think enabled per default.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Checkmk agent is one of the most secure systems I know.
Yeah.
And I know other monitoring systems that have very fat agents that are very complex. That for example, the Checkmk agent does not have any configuration that you need to push, and so you need no push mechanism.
Yeah, and you have no public framework like Corba or something else, which.
Yes, there are no frameworks involved. It's really very, very. I mean, there's one thing we need also to say. If you use the agent updater, that means a process that updates the agent to a new version, you actually install new software on the target system. Yeah, that's.
There we have also a discussion. Can we place there our own software at this point? Yes, if you hire the monitoring server, then you can do anything. If you do that,
but the agent updater, not even that. The agent updater is built in a way that if you hack the monitoring server, you are not able anyway to install new software because the agent updater pushes stuff that's cryptographically signed.
Yeah.
And at the point where you make the distribution, you need to enter the key. For the signing. Okay, so if you, for example, if you catch a backup of the monitoring server, it's useless. You cannot use it for mimicking this update procedure.
Yeah. So if someone hires your monitoring server, you have got a very high problem at the other sides. So
depends on but you can set up Checkmk in a way where it doesn't harm you.
Yeah.
So if you don't use an agent update process, for example, we even had a customer that used Checkmk through a so-called diode. It's a network connection that can send only data in one direction physically.
Mhm.
There's not even a back channel in physics. So, for example, it's a light, it's just one light diode sending data to the other end. You can use Checkmk through that connection.
I know.
And we have a customer that did that, and
I have also a customer. They want to do that.
yeah. So Checkmk is, of course, always you need to know what you do.
Yeah.
But from the architecture, Checkmk is the most safe thing I know.
Yes,
And you can even harden
agree
it
with this
to a way where it's really the safest thing that's available on the market, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have any further questions. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening.
Have a good trip back
Yeah.
home, and we'll meet again at the conference.
Yeah.
So goodbye.